Hi everyone, is everybody ready? Oh, actually, we did. Okay, that's very nice. Alright, hi everyone, welcome to round 4 of MWS 2017. My name is Roshan, I'll be your chef today. With me I have Harvard and Daniel Mark. On proposition we have De La Salle A, and in opposition we have KKK Asian Supremacy. On the motion that this house will ban makeup, I invite the first proposition speaker to start the debate.
We see that makeup is something that ends up distilling a person's very being into something very shallow, into a much more shallow outcome than what a human person actually is. It eventually just boils them down only to their appearance, because it makes them feel bad, it makes them feel insecure, it makes them always want to constantly seek their validation from their peers, from the people around them, based on their appearance alone, based on whatever they put on their face, and that alone, right? So in this debate, I'm going to make it clear with our policy, right? We're not going to make this a general ban. This is going to be a circumstantial ban. We're not going to ban this in general society. We're going to this ban only applies in limited circumstances, such as we're going to ban them in workplaces, we're going to ban them in schools, where productivity is supposed to be the main priority and things like that, right? But we're always, of course, going to have exceptions, especially for professions which need makeup, such as modeling and etc. But then we see that these people would still need to get a permit from the state in order to actually allow for them to be allowed to use these forms of makeup in order for us to properly regulate them, right? But then what are these kinds of makeup, right? These kinds of makeup is all forms of the kinds of makeup that we're banning are all forms of makeup, but then with the exceptions of those that are needed for medical purposes or in order to keep for medical purposes such as moisturizers and etc. Right? Because we see that that's something that needs to be protected. No, sit down. After my first argument. Okay. So that brings me on to my constructives, on to my first argument on when we actually ban something, right? I'm going to argue this on two levels. First, on when there's a need to protect a certain societal good, because we see there really truly are general goods to society the state needs to protect, that we always need to protect, right? One example we see is in education, where you're not allowed to eat in schools, you're not allowed to litter, because we see that that's going to be a distraction to these students. It's going to bring pests, it's going to distract them, it's going to further them away it's going to make it harder for them to actually learn. Okay.
We think there's a very large distinction between people wearing rubbish in schools and wearing makeup in schools. We think that when you wear makeup in school, people are more confident with themselves. They're not so insecure as you wanted to talk about them.
When you ban makeup in all schools no one is wearing makeup, everyone is going to be on the same level of having no makeup. And they're going to see that you have to appreciate those people for who they truly are. And we see that that makeup is actually going to be a distraction. And I'm going to explain that to you later in my second argument, right? But then going back, what are other examples of this, right? In the Philippines, we have something called an anti-wangwang law, where you can't, where you ban unnecessary sirens, where you can't have karaoke late at night, because we recognize that people need to sleep, that people are going to get disturbed by these loud, unnecessary sounds, right? Or another example is, or when you don't honk, when you're not allowed to honk your horns near schools, hospitals, or churches, because you're going to disrupt what the process that's going on. You're going to distract them, and you recognize that there's a need, that there's a societal good that you need to protect, which is the people's need to work, to practice their religion, to learn without being disturbed by other noises coming from outside, right? Or another example is in the form of mooning, where you show your body naked through a window or things like that, because this is when people aren't allowed to get naked in public places, such as when you get naked in your home, but you're standing in the viewpoint of a window where other people on the road can see you. You're not allowed to do that, because even if it's your body, even if you have the right to get naked, even if it's your home, even if you own it, even if you're not killing anyone, we're still going to supersede the right to bodily autonomy, because we see that it's a societal good that the viewer should actually consent to seeing you naked before they actually see you, right? And what's our second what's the second premise of the standard is when there's a principle of crime, when there's a crime that's being committed, right? Because we see that there are two kinds of crime, malum insa and malum prohibitum. Where malum insa is when there's a necessary crime like rape, murder, genocide, and etc. When there's malum prohibitum, which are things like burning flags, not singing the national anthem properly, or things like that, wherein there's actually a greater state value to protect, right? And given these things, that brings me to my second argument on why exactly makeup fulfills these kinds of standards, right? Because firstly, on societal good, it's detrimental to societal good in three ways. First internally, second externally, and third psychologically, right? First, on internally, it takes time to put makeup on. People wake up so early just in order for them to look good for work or to look good for school, and that time, and along with that, they use money. They spend money on expensive makeup, or on buying a lot of makeup and things like that. But then we see that there's still a skill factor to putting on makeup, where people are constantly dependent on how good they are at it. So if they see they're going to waste a lot of time, waste a lot of money, just keep on trying to get the perfect look for work or for school, where it's not even that necessary, where there's a general harm society. No, sit down. Secondly, on the external harm, if you wear makeup to school, if you wear makeup to work, you have to maintain that throughout the day. You always need to touch it up and things like that. And we see that it's going to hamper your productivity in school or in work, because there are examples where you don't want to do physical activities, where you don't want to do certain things just because it's going to mess up your makeup, just because you're going to have to do it again, right? And we see that harms the essential. That's going to harm the essential meaning of going to school, of going to work, which is to be productive and to learn, right? If you're going to go to school just to show off your looks, just to make sure that your makeup looks perfect all the time, while neglecting your studies, while neglecting your work, then we see that that's a detrimental harm to society that we don't want to have. Thirdly, on the psychological harm, obviously there will always be unjust beauty standards when you allow the makeup in schools, when you allow makeup in work, right? Because people are going to judge you if your makeup looks bad. They're going to judge you if you're not wearing makeup or things like that, right? And we see that. Okay. Oh wait, no, it's 7. Sit down. Okay. We see that these unjust beauty standards, that the state shouldn't actually permit the establishment of these beauty standards to begin with, especially in places of productivity, right? Because these are safe spaces. These become safe spaces for the students because their friends are there, and for the workers because of their co-workers. And they're supposed to interact with daily and work together with daily, right? And And when you compromise that safe space with insecurities, beauty standards, then you see that you're not going to end up having you're not going to be productive as we want you to be. You're going to lose the essence of going to work, of going to school. You don't need makeup, you don't need to look good to work, you don't need to look good to study. And we see that that's something that should have been established at the end of the day. And that's a greater good that we need to protect in these places. And for these reasons, I'm proud.
Alright, thank you first opposition speaker. Now I welcome the first opposition speaker.
I think beauty will always be privileged that only the rich, the privileged, the white, blonde girl can always afford to enjoy, right? Because here's the thing, if side government is against makeup in schools, in workplaces, then they must be principally against other forms of expensive clothing, not makeup products, beauty products, or anything that enhances a person's image. But more importantly, I think it's extremely convenient for side government to say that, oh, we're just going to have this in in government areas, in like workplaces or schools, and I'm going to engage with that. But before that, well, 4 conditions that the education must be based upon. Number 1, how fighting the good fight against impossible beauty standards will always be impossible. Number 2, how poor and underprivileged women can never get the type of privileges that like naturally beautiful women get. Number 3, like the type of social benefits that these women gain. And number 4, how you gain better social integration for these kinds of women. But let's start off with a few rebuttals, right? Because let's start off with their extremely they had an extremely weird policy, because they took an extremely soft line stance. They wanted to say, oh, we're gonna have this in workplaces or only schools, right? But here's the thing I don't understand. All the harms that we mentioned just now also applies to other places like shopping malls, no sit down, shopping malls, or going out in a restaurant to eat with your family, right? So I think they're extremely principally inconsistent in that case, because you say these beauty standards exist in schools, but also doesn't exist in other places. No sit down. But second rebuttal, right? You will engage with the characterization of how these places are safe spaces and you need to be much more productive. But here's the thing, right? There's so many women who are born to not be as beautiful. There are women who are born to have dark skin complexion, who have to go to work, who have to go to school every day and get discriminated, who receive these kinds of microaggressions from their much more privileged friends, right? So even if makeup doesn't exist, the racism and the casual discrimination that always exists will always victimize these kinds of individuals. And I think it's extremely convenient for you to say that you need safe spaces when you don't create that safe space for people. No sit down. First substantive coming from my side on societal beauty standards. First level, how it will never change, because I think it's impossible to fight the good fight against supposed beauty standards. If anything, you shift the standard from a person who has extremely thick makeup to a person that who is extremely naturally beautiful. And I'll explain to you why that is extremely harmful. Second level, the harms of natural beauty, right? Because understand this, the only person, so in their world, the only person who can get glorified are the types of people who are naturally beautiful. So what are the exclusive benefits that only, the exclusive privileges that only naturally beautiful people can get? Number 1, they can get organic food or nice diets. Number 2, these are people who have money and wealth. And number 3, genetic the genetic lottery, right? So in your world, like people who are born to be ugly or people who are born to be mediocre, these are people who look at people who like Zendaya and like Gigi Hadid and will always feel insecure about themselves. These are individuals who have to look to idols, even if these idols were to be naturally beautiful. The kind of insecurity that will happen will always exist. If anything, this is the comparative, right? On our side, we give them an avenue for these people to at least look good about themselves, to at least adapt to these kinds of beauty standards so that they can actually feel some form of security and confidence about how they look, not articulated. So what do we create, right? Like we give you an example of how like people who used to be bullied in high school, people like Demi Lovato who was bullied because like she was slightly darker than her friends. We say these are the kinds of people that we need to help in the future. These are the kinds of people who need makeup right now so that they can like cover up the pain that they used to feel. Because these are people who always have mediocre looks. These are people who will never look as naturally beautiful as other women. We need to give these women the type of avenue. So the second substantive, right, on like poor women, because so the first level is this, right? Why these people will always be the victims of exclusive beauty standards. Number one, because they have lack of access to like good diets and all these kinds of things. Like for example, like poor rural Indian Tamilan women from India, right? These are kinds of people who move to Mumbai and move to New Delhi and have to feel like and have to be discriminated by North Indian women. Why? Because they have darker skin complexion. Because they have to work under the scorching sun every single day. So if anything, these kinds of standards will only exist, and these kinds of standards will only be exclusive to women who are naturally beautiful. You need to give us the link as to why suddenly all these narratives about beauty standards will change. Because we say that the predominant like impossible beauty standards already exist, and you need to tell us why suddenly like you will take like a shorter time to like change all these kinds of narratives. Before moving on to the second level, onto how these women would socially integrate. Sure.
Two things. Number one, that doesn't clash with our standards at all. How about it with less in productivity? But secondly, who's going to adjust to these kinds of racism? The people who are already being oppressed and now are forced to whiten themselves just because that were the people who are discriminating.
We reject the premise. We say that even if you didn't have makeup, we say that these people who have darker skin complexions will always be oppressed. Why is that so? Because these women are underprivileged, these people are poor, and they can never gain natural beauty. If anything, you shift the beauty standard to people who are naturally beautiful. This is something that you need to understand. So what are kinds of social benefits and how is it easier for these women to socially integrate? Number one, more opportunities. We bring to you the precedent of countries like South Korea, like extremely misogynistic societies where CEOs will only hire like women who are beautiful, right? If anything, in your world, these CEOs will only hire women who are naturally beautiful. That means other women who don't look as good, who maybe have who maybe have an acne or like pimples around their faces. These are kinds of women who are excluded with these kinds of job opportunities. Right? We say that we need to give these women the proper tools so that they can actually socially integrate. We say maybe we can't fight the good fight, but here's the thing: the good fight can never be fought because these kinds of impossible standards will continue to persist as long as naturally beautiful women will exist, as long as rich, privileged women who don't have to stay under the sun. These kinds of people will continue to exist. Number two, the type of recognition that you get, right? For example, if you were to be an Asian or like Polynesian person and you go to like a Western university who assume like everyone will be naturally beautiful there, I don't think that the narrative will change because if anything, you make these people more oppressed. But the third substantive, I'm going to go through this very quickly and my DPM will extend this. Like the type of black markets that you will create, right? Because the first level, why is it there will always be an incentive and a demand for poor women or like people who don't look as good to opt into these kinds of makeup products? We say in your world, people have to opt into unsafe makeup products, like FDAs cannot approve these kinds of products. All these kinds of extremely toxic chemicals inside of these kinds of products. And if anything, these are the kinds of people who are much more harmed. Why is that so? Because you can't regulate these kinds of beauty products. But in the end of the day, we have to concede that these kinds of impossible beauty standards will always exist if there were to be a misogynistic society. We give them the proper tools to integrate.
Thanks, second option. Before I proceed, we're just very reminder to like keep your voices to the so that you can not interrupt the speaker. Yeah. So let's welcome the second proposition speaker.
The viewpoint of side opposition is very pessimistic, where they characterize the world as monolithic and unyielding, where they characterize people that like distilling other people based on their looks, and they seek to create really convenient examples to their sides, and they make non-analogous points where they assume that poor people are dark-skinned and rich people are white. Therefore, these major inconsistencies in their arguments when they say that the world is a harsh and terrible place. And I'm going to prove to you on side proposition why it's not as bad as they say it is, and why secondly, we need to uplift the people who are most vulnerable, and why only a circumstantial harm is necessary. But let's go on to my responses. First, they say that finding impossible beauty standards is impossible. Two levels of response. First, there's already been large footholds of movements that fight for the burdened society, like those fighting for fat people, where they call plus size now, and there's generally been a trend of acceptance in the world, where racism is at a minimum, where LGBT have been more integrated into society these days than it was in any other point in history, where there's already been a culture of acceptance and liberalism that has been going around. We tell you that states like here in Southeast Asia have become more progressive and liberal, where they have actually accepted that maybe it's okay not to wear religious symbols, maybe it's okay not to constantly fight for your belief, where in fact radicalism or like extremist ideals that opposition wants to put forward, we're not even trying at all, have actually been shunned in society. Meaning that if you don't accept liberal values, you are in fact more likely to get shunned in society. Therefore, there's an incentive to accept liberal values because like it's become the norm. And they say that, it is then their burden to prove why exactly the discriminated people should change on behalf of those who are discriminating. This is my second level. Because what they then create, Downties, is a self-fulfilling prophecy, where if you are dark-skinned, and then you see that people are discriminating you because you are dark, therefore you associate that being dark-skinned is bad, that you are bad, that it's better to be white, then you do everything in your power to be white, even though there's nothing inherently bad with being dark. Therefore, who's the one adjusting to the situation? The one already vulnerable and discriminated, or the one discriminating the discriminated? We tell you that it should be the one discriminating because they're the ones at fault. And only when you can expose them and grant evidence and you can say that these people are practicing certain wrong values, i.e. discriminating dark people, only when you can expose them, that's the time that there can actually be an even greater foothold on fighting the good fight, a fight opposition seems to forget exists, sit down please. But I'll take you one later. But even if, let's say that dark people are being discriminated, even if, let's say that they are poor, ugly, and I don't know, just generally lower in a class in society, we still tell you that being white or being rich is not analogous to being more beautiful. It's not a fight on makeup and looks. It's then a fight on class. It's a fight on who has the more money to be able to do this. It's then a fight on who has, like, who can buy more things and materialism. It's not how you look. It's a matter of who is richer. And we tell you that if you want to fight that fight, makeup is not the way. It's wealth equality, or it's like, you know, showing that the poor aren't bad. If the fight is that, then we tell you we're okay with that. Sure, why not? We can do that in relation to makeup within schools and workplaces. But they also say that, they also say that insecurity will perpetuate and people won't self-actualize in schools and workplaces. We tell you that that only happens if one person or one party is wearing makeup and the other is not. Because the one wearing makeup can then discriminate the one not wearing makeup. But if no one wears makeup, who has a right to discriminate? No one. Because then it can only be, oh, you're not wearing makeup, ha, shame on you. But the other person isn't wearing makeup too. Sit down, please. Therefore, we tell you that their examples are non-analogous and actually don't tackle the problem where we do. Because then there's actually less right to discriminate, because then you're not wearing makeup on both parties. When there's less right to discriminate, because now only your purest self is being put in front. And then, yeah, so basically, that if your pure self is the one being put in front, and you expose that your pure self has bad ideals, then your pure self can be tackled at its purest form. Compared to when you use makeup as a shield towards what your ideals really are, when you can say, oh, I'm beautiful, and yeah, I'm beautiful, so I'm right. If then you're not as beautiful, or people haven't seen you without makeup, now see you without makeup, they can say that you're not as beautiful as you seem. Now you're wrong. Therefore, we can actually tackle it at its very fundamental level. And later, after this. And on the third idea, they say that, are we then going to ban clothes? Are we then going to ban nice shoes? We tell you that there's a difference between makeup and clothes. Because clothes can easily be bought. Even like nice clothes can be cheap. They can be bought at like a bargain store. They can be bought at a thrift store. Sure, it might not be as good quality, but it still looks nice. And if their point is only looking nice, then sure, we can have that. But second, clothes serve for functionality. Clothes can keep you hot or cold depending on the climate. And that's why clothes are in the first place. And so that's okay, right? That's another thing that we have. But more importantly, clothes last way longer than makeup too. Once you use up a lipstick stick, it's gone. But clothes can last for like 4 years, 5 years, all the way till the end of your life. But assuming that people still feel insecure, assuming that people that can't change, we tell you that it's still better on our side, because then we still try to fight the good fight compared to their side, where they take into a complacent state that supports bigotry and racism and classism all at once, where they try nothing at the end of the day. Yes.
It's not about the cost of luxury clothing, but here's the thing. Luxury clothing exemplifies the person's privilege and the person's class. So why is it still okay to have luxury clothing?
Exactly. It exemplifies a privilege, a class, then it's not about how you look, it's about your class. That's why they call it a status symbol, because it conveys status. And if it conveys status, then the problem isn't in how it looks. It could be like a plain dream for all you know with just a tiny brand on it. Then it's how much that person earns, or how much the capacity he or she has monetarily. Then the problem isn't in how it looks, it's a problem in how the money is. And we can fight that too, right? With welfare and like scholarships and education, we have multiple other alternatives. So let's go on to my first argument. Why exactly the choice of the individual is illegitimate if makeup exists? We tell you that there will be a self-correcting mechanism where if you don't wear makeup for a day, you'll feel bad. It's like an addiction. If you get withdrawal from drugs or from coffee even, something so mild-mannered as that, you'll feel terrible. Your self-esteem will go down, and that, you know, in a world with makeup, if you go one day without makeup, everything will go bad because you recognize that everyone else around you is wearing makeup and it has become the norm. Therefore, there's also a societal pressure. And we tell you that there's a point of no return where wearing makeup every day has become a norm, where going a day without it is so bad, therefore you require state intervention. You need help on a fundamental level that allows you to see that makeup isn't a priority. If we tell you that the choice then is illegitimate because the mindset has been shifted past the point of no return that thinks makeup is heaven sent, that it requires a state intervention on a psychological level, on a societal level, on a peer level, and we give that to you on side proposition. And we tell you that even if the choice is legitimate, you still can't gauge whether or not it's actually a means of self-actualization, because self-actualization can mean different to everyone. Meaning that, here's an example of human trafficked sex slaves who went with white men, feel that they are more privileged because at least their child is white or at least their child is blue-eyed. Therefore, there is that irrationality present. For that, we're not to propose. Thank you.
Alright, next second proposition, and second opposition.
Yeah.
I think it's very funny for the first and second speaker to continue to change how their policies will look and how their principal precedences are. Because the first speaker wanted to argue that, oh, we'll only ban makeup in like workplaces and places where you're supposed to be productive, which means that you can wear it while you're on the streets. And then the second speaker wanted to argue if you wear makeup, some other people don't, and then discrimination will exist. Discrimination still exists on a very high level on their scale when people are on the ground, right? They need to prove to us how when people are on the ground, suddenly they'll get makeup, and then when they're in workplaces, they wouldn't get makeup. But irregardless of whether people do have makeup or whether they don't, we still think that people deserve the autonomy to make decisions for themselves, because we think that these people solely depend on how they look, and that the society will continue to judge you based on how they look. They need to prove to us how no one will judge you of how you look, because they're not debating in status quo. They're debating in a very idealistic world where, oh, the world is such a nice place. We take their precedence as well, and we'll prove to you why it's still better to have makeup. Because even if the world accepts you for how you look, the moment you see yourself in a mirror every morning, you know that you don't look as good as Selena Gomez. You know you don't look as good as Demi Lovato. You'll continue to shit on yourself. You will never accept yourself to be as attractive as Selena Gomez or Demi Lovato within these instances. So we tell you that for these people who are insecure about themselves, and like the insecurity comes from themselves, to these people, makeup is extremely important. Sure, their besties will take it. Yes, maybe you can change societal perceptions, but you have to change your perceptions, and that's something we don't think can ever happen. Even if they want to argue that people can like go to rehabilitation centers and things like that, we still think that the microaggression that will exist will always discriminate you just so you're black. They need to get so many distinctions in today's debate, right? First rebuttal coming from me. How they wanted to argue that the state should protect these people. My first speaker already told you how my black markers will continue to exist. So therefore, we believe if the state truly wants to protect these people from makeup and their harms, whether or not it's chemical, whether or not it's emotional, we think that the state is the one who should legalize these things. The state is the one who should subsidize these things for everyone. Why? If they want to argue that only some people have makeup and others don't, we solve that problem. As the state, we legalize it, we subsidize it for everyone so that it's much cheaper and much more accessible. Through that, we solve their whole problem of discrimination, right? But secondly, even if like the state, given that the state as a person constantly accepts that makeup is a legitimate form of you wanting to cover up the way you look, whether or not you look good to society, whether or not you look bad to society, it all boils down to how you feel about yourself. So it's so much more important for you to have makeup if you choose that choice. If I as a person, even if I look ugly, but I am confident in myself, I don't think I would want to opt in for makeup, because I don't give two shits about what people think of me outside. I care about how I feel about myself. If I don't feel confident about myself, but other people do, I would still want to opt in for makeup, because I don't look good when I see myself in the mirror. These are the kind of instances where makeup is extremely important. Number two, they wanted to argue how makeup fulfills societal standards. They need to argue in these circumstances of status quo, where a lot of beauty pageants already glorify things like size zero, and how you should always be like having large eyes and like really large lips, and like how K-pop stars always glorify what a good-looking Korean man looks like. Within these instances, we tell you that the narrative of an ideal man, the narrative of an ideal woman already exists. Hence why we believe that makeup is the only form of compensation to those people who don't fit these narratives in the first place. People who don't naturally look as good as these people need makeup. Because that is the only way for these people to ever want to feel as confident as these people. They know that they have the hope, that they have the possibility of wanting to be as good as these people within these instances. Number three, they wanted to argue how the liberalist culture already exists. This is very convenient for them to argue, because they are only arguing on instances where like progressive countries continue to accept you for how you look. But they need to argue in many other Asian countries where your families themselves discriminate you for how you look. They tell you that you need to look slim, they tell you that you need to look fat if you ever want to get married. In order for your husband to truly love you, you must fit how he wants his perfect wife to be, right? These things will always exist. They need to prove to us why without makeup, people will suddenly want to accept people like they never proved it anyways. So number four. And then they wanted to argue how it's a fight about class. Here's the distinction. Rich people can always buy themselves into jobs. They already have money. They don't need to go work on a daily basis to get money. But poor people do. Poor people who, most of the time, they do hard labor, right? And this kind of jobs automatically change how their physical appearances do. These people are exposed to the sun, they become darker. These people do many heavy jobs that physically change them as a person. Therefore, to these people, makeup is the only form of them being able to integrate into society, even if they do these jobs in the first place. But number five, if people can wear makeup when they're on the streets, then discrimination will always exist, right? So we think that they need to be principally on one side. Either you're principally against all forms of makeup, or you're principally against you're principally supporting all forms of makeup, which is basically our stance. So they need to pick a side in these cases. So and then here's why.
Our side is simple. We're against makeup, and maybe those other things we'll have another debate.
But the thing that we're trying to say is that makeup is fundamentally detrimental for your capability to do life. Because number one, in schools you will be discriminated and it takes time, which takes away from your studies and your productivity.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? If you don't, like, I'll give you a very simple analogy. A lot of white countries only choose stewardess who look good, who are white, who are slim, or in these instances. So, like, we think that the moment you fit societal sex standards of what a perfect woman looks like or perfect stewardess looks like, only then you'll get that job in the first place. So, if they want to argue that productivity will suddenly exist, they need to prove to us why this productivity is so important when so many black women on the ground can never become these stewardesses. When so many people continue to discriminate you just because of their physical appearance. They've yet to prove to us why society will suddenly change, right? But even if society suddenly changes, we don't think that your narrative of how you look like is necessarily going to change. So my first argument in today's debate is about the emotional security that will exist the moment people get makeup. Because I've already told you how a lot of people are insecure about themselves. Makeup creates a form of like falsehood. Even if it is false, we think that it's still better. Why? Because now people are happier. People have hope. Because a lot of people feel better about how they look. Insecurity is never necessarily a problem. So many things like anorexia nervosa continues to surround like a lot of teenagers because teenagers want to always look good for their boyfriends. These kind of things will always exist. You need to change this narrative, but it's not possible because these narratives are like already very strong within society. K-pop is already like glorified by media. Hence why we think that it's so much more important for us to give makeup to people who don't fit these standards. Because you will always be discriminated when you don't look like these celebrities, right? So we think that makeup is extremely important in these circumstances. But even if Gav's best case, when you can change this narrative of society, assuming that they can prove it later in a big speech, that we tell you that teenager will always feel that she does not look as good as those celebrities that I wanted to talk to you about. This person will always be insecure about themselves. They always want to isolate themselves from the major society because they know that they can never integrate because they never look as good as those celebrities that are always glorified on a daily basis. Given that a lot of Asian families always force their children to like look good so they fit the kind of like what a husband would want from an ideal wife, we think that within these circumstances that poor person or that person in particular will always be discriminated. Whether or not it's a fight of class, we think that because of the fact that you don't fit these standards, you will always be discriminated. So like even if the fight of class do exist, right? We think that yeah, we concede that it's not a fight to do with makeup. And in fact, we don't think that it's a fight that comes to this debate. We tell you that the fight of class is not in this debate, but the fight that rich people will always get the privileges because they already have money, but poor people don't. That's why poor people depend so much more on how they look. That's why poor people need makeup even more than rich people, just so that they can access them, right? But even if they want to argue how poor people make irrational decisions and how it's extremely expensive, they need to prove to us how it's mutually exclusive to only makeup. Because we tell you that even expensive clothing come within these circumstances. We tell you a lot of other things need to be considered in order for them to prove anything, or if anything, they can prove our society will continue to discriminate you. That's something I have proven to you.
Alright, thank you. The second opposition, I will go to the competition.
Mr. Chair, we have to recognize that the opposition side in this debate is simply being unreasonable. They call us out for being unreasonable because what they want and what they see is that because things like K-pop and the way that the media has become so westernized, it's simply impossible for people who are darker skinned to ever feel appreciated, to ever feel like they're beautiful, to ever feel self-actualized. The kind of rhetoric that they're going under simply assumes that every single person in the world is racist. This will be a kind of action that will be continuing forever, and therefore we're going to force the people who are the most discriminated in the society, force the people who are already the most poor, to constantly buy makeup, to constantly buy beauty products, just so that they can fit into the narrative of the people that they say are already so discriminatory of these people to begin with. I'm gonna solve this debate in 3 issues. Number one, we're going to talk about external factors and how makeup affects that. Secondly, we're going to talk about internal and like introspective factors and how it affects your own self-esteem. And thirdly, I'm going to go back to the meat of this debate, where this debate should be at. When do we ban? When can we ban? And when is it justified for the state to ban these kinds of circumstances to begin with? Let's start with the first idea of external discrimination and how that ran over in this debate. The thing that we were saying coming from government side was simple. That if you have like makeup is something that is expensive, it is a commodity that is then exacerbated by people who have the capability to afford this. And not to mention that, this is also a thing about about skill, in which if you're not good at putting up makeup, or if you cannot afford that makeup in the begin with, or you don't even have the time to put on your makeup because you don't want to wake up 3 hours before, like 3 hours, like at 3 a.m. in the morning, just so you can put up your makeup before class starts, then you're obviously going to be discriminated. Then the discrimination and the world that government, our opposition side, tries to portray actually exists. Wherein, when you don't look pretty, then that's when people discriminate you, and that's something that necessarily is bad, and that's something that's external discrimination. What did they say? They told us that the logic was different. They said the reason why this discrimination exists was because this discrimination doesn't exist on prettiness, but on a class and race divide. Where they told us that people who are poorer are typically darker, and then they have to work four more stressing jobs, and therefore look less pretty. First of all, that's a really bigoted assumption where you assume that poor people can't be pretty. We actually tell you it could be the converse, where if you live a sheltered life, you're probably more likely to get fat, or if you live a sheltered life, you're probably less likely to actually bring physical sex. Not to mention, they didn't even characterize the kind of circumstances that these ideas would be going on to begin with. Obviously, maybe if there was an unfair battleground where you had really rich people in the same school as really poor people, where the characterization lied in, where one group of people can just stay at home and the other one has to work in the fields because that's how they support their family, which is number one, unlikely, because typically schools have the same kind of demographic, where if you have a school in the mid-city urban neighborhood, it's going to be filled with the same type of people. Maybe there's some kind of divide between the people within that school. Maybe some may be whiter, maybe some may be darker, but we tell you that if you're going to be forced to actually conform with the ideals of the people who are more fair-skinned than you, then that creates a self-fulfilling prophecy, like Raymond said, about how you're going to constantly exacerbate this idea that being white is better, and just prolongs the problem. But secondly, we tell you that this is actually not really going to be a problem in the circumstance where if nobody has makeup, then that discrimination cannot exist except for people who eat in maybe the best case of opposition side, who are naturally pretty. And we tell you that being naturally pretty doesn't mean being naturally rich. Maybe with government opposition sides examples where if you could buy organic corn, maybe you can look slightly more pretty, but we tell you that the majority of those things has to deal with genetics and exercise, which isn't typically in the lines of people who are rich. We see that people like Donald Trump, who are very rich, don't look very pretty, but for that sure.
Stop characterizing things so conveniently. We concede that people who already accept you are never part of this debate. You need to talk about what happens when no one wants to accept you.
What are you talking about? We're talking about gradients and about a school system which is multi-diverse. You can't just disregard people who are not accepting you and just say that the only thing that will happen is people who discriminate you. Our goal coming from government was clear. We want to, number one, lessen the amount of external discrimination from these people, meaning that we want to lessen the national narrative that being white is better or being rich is better. And secondly, what we also want to make sure is even if that exists, even if that narrative still exists, we want to make sure that the battleground is more even, where you can't just buy $10,000 worth of makeup, make yourself look really pretty, hire a stylist, and then say, I'm more pretty than you, therefore I have the authority to discriminate you. Conclusion of this issue: external discrimination really lies when you exacerbate this kind of inequality. This inequality is exacerbated by time, skill, and money, things that people who are typically poor or typically who don't have access to these things simply can't have, and even if you subsidize it, that's an undue burden that you're forcing upon these people to actually carry that cost. Secondly, we're going to talk about internal discrimination. Something that opposition side seems to be very willy-nilly about, where they just say that, well, if you see as your idols Selena Gomez or the people who are very white, therefore, if you don't look like that, you're gonna feel even worse. First of all, number one, they never even told to us how makeup fixes that thing to save it. What was their example? They said, if you look at the mirror and you don't see your idol, that means you're discriminated. Makeup comes off. When you come to sleep, you still encounter the same problem. When you wake up in the morning, you're never actually going to look like that person. But secondly, it's you're feeding into that narrative to begin with, where if you constantly try to conform with it, there's going to be no resistance. You create that own beauty standard. And thirdly, we tell you that that's not something that's completely holistic or overburdening. We tell you that there are a lot of people who identify with other forms of beauty that you might not recognize. People that say like Nicki Minaj, who are also considered very beautiful, but people who are very black, and we also have very dark skin. But we also see in things like Miss Universe, the class the divide isn't as clear. We tell you that even though those people are technically fit, even people from let's say African states are pretty dark because they conform to this beauty standards which exist within that state and are not necessarily as general as you want them to be. So what did we say coming from government about how this is actually the Behavioral psychology about how you think of yourself. But these are simple. We don't think. But if you didn't have to spend 3 hours a day trying to make yourself more beautiful, trying to make yourself feel that cool, that's kind of standard, that kind of standard. Because you see yourself equal to everybody in your work, everybody in your school, the idea of that competition exists in change yourself just to the competition. But the real, when we invite the guy, that's where we really had no idea. Coming from the science, we were talking about science in general. Science is one of the science is education, living down, which are all provided by happening. The thing is completely coming from science. What's your classification? But trying to conform to those standards could actually create a societal harm in which you can spend 3 hours in the morning getting yourself up. You can, let's say, fail the test and fail the test, or deteriorate your studies, or at least deteriorate your sleep, which would then incur losses in learning at the end of the day. Even if government sides, opposition sides, best place comes in, where they say maybe you feel more confident, but even if you feel as confident as possible, if you didn't study for the test because you were actually trying to make yourself better, you're still gonna fail that test at the end of the day. And that societal harm is still always going to be true if we're gonna force these people to actually conform to these standards, which take time, effort, skill, and money. So this is societal harm. The only idea that they had about when we do or do not ban something was their quick standard, where they told us that the state is supposed to actually try to make sure that you feel self-actualized as a person. First of all, that's not actually objective standard. That's something subjective and something that most state could measure at the end of the day. Meaning that if we're just talking about whether we not ban, it's simple. We need to have a side that's like objective standards in that side of government.
Alright, thank the opposition. I welcome the opposition.
Beauty is the beast. As an individual who wore lipstick today, I feel much more confident giving my speech. And I think that my prep time was super productive, even though I was wearing makeup, it wasn't a distraction for me. So this debate really boils down to two issues. Which side can give better tangible outcomes to individuals who wear makeup and or do not wear makeup? Or secondly, which side gives people the ability to be more confident and to be more happy? But before that, two rebuttals that didn't really fit in today's debate. Firstly, let's distinct with the differences between a rich person and a poor person. A rich person is born when they have access to organic food. They don't have to work part-time jobs when they are studying. And that person has the money to actually buy a lot of other whitening products or every other thing and do everything in their power in order to make themselves feel beautiful. But the problem is this: poor people don't have that kind of access, right? That's why we think they are the most vulnerable people in today's debate, and therefore we have the obligation to actually protect them and to make them feel much more confident and happier about themselves. And secondly, the comparative with clothes is this, right? We think that rich people are we think that in clothes, people also buy expensive clothes. They waste a lot of money on clothes, right? And if you want to argue distraction between clothes and makeup, we think people wearing maybe tight clothes in workplaces can also be a form of distraction if that's what you want to argue. We think it's completely irrelevant that you want to say it distracts people, right? So firstly, the tangible part of today's debate, right? So they wanted to argue on how the state needs to protect the people and the society from distraction, right? But the thing is this: without makeup, people in South Korea can't even get jobs to begin with, and I think that's a much bigger harm than distracting, right? And we tell you that you make it much more worse for them in schools, in workplaces, right? Because even without makeup, now everyone has to rely on their natural beauty, and that has a standard on its own. Therefore, people who are darker skin or smaller eyes, people with acne, are more likely to be discriminated, and now they don't have an avenue in actually changing themselves to make themselves more confident. That's when discrimination is much more likely to occur. And we tell you on a second level, on productivity, right? Let's really engage. They say that you're less likely to be productive when you wear makeup. We think that's not true, because people work better when they're confident. A lawyer is more likely to give a much better case at court if that person feels confident about the person's way of talking, and we think that is much more important in today's debate. And also, they wanted to argue on like how people use like a lot of money, people use a lot of time. We think that we are willing to trade off, let people use their money, let people use their time, because people need to be happy, and we rather prefer a world where people are happy instead of just being productive and passing the test, but being depressed and discriminated on a larger level, right? Nerds are discriminated all the time and they get into depression even though they pass the test, right? So we think that we prefer a world, but on a second level, right? Like on a comparative, people who spend money on things that make them confident, people that makes them feel contented and happy. Religious people spend their money and time on religion because it makes them feel contented, it makes them happy, it makes them feel confident. And I think makeup has the same effect on people, and therefore I don't think it's very that it's okay if people are going to use their money and their time. So on the second level, right? Let's look at the principal part of today's debate. So, firstly, let's talk about like insecurity as a whole. Because number one, we think that the policy is extremely at flaw in today's debate, because they told us that like this policy only works in like schools and workplaces, but then all the external discrimination and its harms is only mutually exclusive to workplaces or in schools. People are still going to think that you're ugly if you go into a shopping mall and you have a face filled with acne. People are still going to think that you're dark and that you're ugly just because you have like darker complexion if you're walking in the park or like jogging in the park, right? We think that all the harm still accrues in other places and not only in workplaces or schools. So and secondly, we think that insecurity is something that will always exist. And we don't think it exists solely because of the existence of makeup. We think that it's existed by the impossible beauty standards. And it's not only imposed and enforced by your society, it's also imposed by your family itself, right? Like how Indian families constantly tell you, if you're not thin, if you're not fair, if you're not pretty enough, if you have acne, you'll not be able to find a good boy to marry. Things like this are always going to exist in like Asian families, and that's why we think that insecurity is something that is very hard to, insecurity is something that's always going to exist. That's why Poova's argument really materializes today, right? And we think that insecurities exist on a larger scale, right? Because people who are born with like things that because people who are born with things that make them less beautiful than other people are less likely to like feel secure about themselves in general, right? For an example, like Bollywood doesn't, if like all these trickle-down effects of Western liberal democracies that they want to talk applies, then why doesn't Bollywood still employ dark-skinned actresses? But before I move on, sure.
Should then the disabled people from birth act able-bodied simply because they fear discrimination if they act disabled?
The thing here is different. We think that there's a distinction between disabled people and people who are less beautiful, because disabled people are already seen as special people. They have already achieved a lot of things today, and we think that people have a lot of sympathy towards people who are disabled as compared to people having sympathy towards someone with acne, someone with darker skin. That's the comparison here. We think that disabled people we don't think that's even a part of today's debate, right? And that's when we want to argue. That's when it comes down to like what you want to talk about body positivity, right? And we think it only exists in Western liberal democracies, in countries, in misogynistic countries, in conservative countries like Korea, like Japan, like even Malaysia or like Southeast Asian countries. These kinds of narratives of beauty standards are always going to exist. You're always going to like someone with double eyelids, and the trickle-down effect, even if it does exist, it only exists in like city part of like a developing country, only exists like a really minority. So like everyone else who has to live with this narrative is now not allowed to wear makeup, is not allowed to feel confident in themselves.
which brings me to the third part of the debate, right? Because they wanted to argue that how choice is such a legitimate thing because of societal pressure. We think that people choose to take weed because like maybe their friends told them it's nice. Is that societal pressure? We think that choice is not illegitimate because of societal pressure. We think that, and if I am a person who chooses to wear makeup because it makes me feel bold, it makes me feel confident to give my speech today, I don't think that is societal pressure. I think my choice to wear makeup is still legitimate. But even if societal pressure still exists, we still think that the choice is still legitimate because of the effects of makeup, right? We've already analyzed like how makeup is able to let you get social benefits, right? You're more likely to be integrated in society better. You're more likely to get better jobs. You're more likely to be promoted to begin with, right? So we think that all the benefits that you gain on your side is extremely arbitrary because number one, it's not mutually exclusive. In your best case, discrimination only doesn't exist in workplaces or in schools, and we think that productivity is something that exists better on our side when people feel confident about the way they look.
Alright, thanks for the talk. I also publish a reply to close the debate.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think it's pointless to like argue on semantics and argue like how we find a rich and privileged person and darker skinned person. Like I don't think it's really relevant to this debate, and I think it's extremely convenient that side opposition wanted to tell us all the harms of wearing makeup, all the harms of being pressured, but they only wanted to subject it in schools, in workplaces. Extremely convenient characterizations from side government. We have 4 things to prove today, and if we prove these 4 things in my reply speech, then we will take today's debate. Number 1, who will better help poor people to like gain social acceptance? Number 2, who better adapts to discrimination? And number 3, who feel much more confident? Yes, even in workplaces and schools, right? So the most important thing here, the first issue here is like the whole education and workplace thing, right? So the only thing that they told us is like, oh, these people feel much more unproductive because like their colleagues or like their friends will discriminate them for not wearing makeup. But here's the comparative that we have been giving you throughout our 3 speeches, right? We say that in these kinds of places, right, like people who are naturally beautiful, people people who have that genetic lottery can actually feel much more privileged. If anything, these kinds of discriminations will only exist. What's the comparative, right? At least on our side, poor people who have acne, poor people who don't have like beautiful like lips or like luscious lips, all these kinds of things. These are kinds of people who can opt into makeup to make themselves look much better, so that they can be at a level playing field with other rich and privileged women. Here's the thing, right? You want to talk about makeup skills, all these kinds of things. We don't think that is a problem because in the end of the day, poor women also can have good makeup skills. That's not really right. But here's the thing, the second issue, the most important one, on confidence, right? Because we say even in the best case scenario, even if our people like have to constantly adapt to all these kinds of societal standards, we say this is completely good. Why is that so? Because if you were born in a family, a conservative Indian family that continuously tells you that, hey, you're fat, you're ugly, you have a lot of people, like you will feel the kind of pressure to change yourself. And if you don't have makeup, you will always have to look at Taylor Swift with her extremely naturally beautiful look, and you'll never feel the type of empowerment, and you'll never find the kind of security. If anything, you don't find the type of principal solace that you wanted to talk about. We say happiness is the ultimate virtue here. The third speaker and the second speaker have already told you why is it important and why is it much more productive that people can opt into these kinds of makeup products and feel much more confident about themselves. Why is that so? Because we paid you the extremely important characterization that people who are naturally beautiful, people who can afford the genetic lottery, these kinds of people will continue to exist, and in the end, people who are poor, people who can't access makeup, people who are poor and people who don't look as good will always be discriminated. That's why we need an avenue, thirdly, of social acceptance. Because I think it's extremely convenient for side government to tell us that, oh, these people will only get, we need to exclude this inside of schools and workplaces only. We don't think that suddenly when you go out in the streets, everyone will suddenly treat you like God. Because here's the thing, if you are ugly and you walk in the streets of Manila or Kuala Lumpur, and people will look at you and they'll think that you're ugly. But here's what we get to achieve on our side. That's something that I and my third speaker have already told you. We say that when your family and society will continue to pressure you and will continue to discriminate you because you're not naturally beautiful, that is when we give these types of makeup products. That is when we give these types of tools for them to enhance themselves. They have never managed to answer the question as to why is it that they are principally okay with expensive clothing or anything that enhances a person's image. No response, right? And on poor women, we say that poor women will always get excluded out of these kinds of jobs. But if anything, we blur the class distinction. We make sure that everyone is seen as beautiful, because now everyone can have makeup, because now everyone can have these kinds of products and can have all these kinds of avenues to look good. If anything, we make the kind of class problem much more relevant, because we say that poor women and basically women who are born to not look as good as people like Taylor Swift or Zendaya will always be discriminated. And it's even much more important that we give these people the type of empowerment that they need.
Right, thank opposition reply, and close the proposition reply. Yeah.
This debate should be gauged on one primary standard. It's whether or not the trade-off between confidence and introspective and extrospective narrative building towards yourself and others is worth it. Whether or not confidence or your self-esteem or your right to be happy is worth it. We tell you that the case of opposition can be distilled into one word: confidence. Whether or not you can be more confident in the classroom, in the workplace, in public, and whether or not that confidence can directly impact your life. We've already tackled that idea on 4 fundamental levels. They say that 4 things affect your confidence. First, the clothes you wear. Second, the makeup you wear. Third, the amount of discrimination you receive. And fourth, the amount of insecurity yourself. Discrimination is external and insecurity is internal. We tell you that we are engaged into the frame by saying, on a level of clothes, we tell you that if clothes exhibit distraction and extravagance, sure, we could ban that too. We've already clarified from my speech, and in fact from my first speaker, saying that if anything seeks to distract productivity or seeks to distract the fundamental premise of schools and workplaces, sure, why not? That's why we can ban lights aside from honking, or sirens aside from honking. We can ban multiple other things, so why not too? And secondly, we tackle the level of makeup. We tell you that if everyone wears makeup, the class divide is somehow blurred. That's what they say. We tell you that no, it's not blurred, coming from our second speaker, me, and my whip. We tell you that, in fact, it will only enforce the class divide even more. Because now there's that race of competition to see who has better makeup. You apply your makeup bad, feel bad about yourself, feel bad about your poor stature. At least when no one has makeup, then no one can judge each other for not wearing makeup, because you're not wearing makeup too. But we analyze it on a second level, saying that this is systemic. It's about the genetic and wealth lottery. If you take away the variable of wealth lottery, because now no one can buy makeup, it's banned, we tell you that we fight on the level of genetics. We tell you that then the narrative can shift from, instead of discriminating these people, to actually feeling sorry, given that there's a trend of liberalism that I presented to you in my speech. And we tell you that we assume that their frame is true. We assume that this discrimination is unyielding and monolithic. We said that let's assume that a dark-skinned person walks into a mall and a white supremacist or KKK member sees them and discriminates them for it. We tell you that then makeup won't do anything. If the KKK member thinks that the white person, because he or she is wearing makeup, acts and talks and goes all within the norms like a black person, then no matter what the skin tone of that person is, the white supremacist will still discriminate nonetheless. That's why there's still lynchings of white people even when the KKK was at its prime. Because as long as you act like a certain identity, you'll be treated like so, and your appearance can do nothing about it. We've proven that to you in my whip and my speech, because we tell you that appearance isn't everything. That goes into the third level of insecurity. We tell you that if you take away the factor of makeup, then your mirror won't have to be a poster of Taylor Swift, because then you can introspect and look at the other various things you can retrieve identity from, like intellect, like capacity of social connection, like your relationships with others. Meaning that if you take away the variable of makeup, you can then value other experiences more. You can then see that makeup isn't such a major part of your life anymore. Therefore, it is in fact better for you. I've proven that in my speech by saying that the choices aren't legitimate, because if you cannot live without makeup, you cannot live properly with makeup. So on a fourth and final level, we tell you that they said that discrimination happens anyway. But we tell you that we tackle this on two levels. First, discrimination is systemic, meaning you have to target the system and not the people on the ground suffering from it. Because if this discriminated adjusts towards the ideals of the discriminating, then it's bad for the discriminated because they're even more discriminated. But on the second level, we tell you that in fact, there is already a plight for these people, because now you can expose them for the bad ideals that have been perpetrated throughout society. And we tell you that it will be better for these people because now they can find their own social circle. They can find, their own identity can be preserved even more by looking towards their peers without makeup. For that, we're proud to propose. Thank you.
Alright, thank you. You guys first of all, shake hands, be friends, and